I sat at the elegant restaurant table, watching my son Marcus laugh loudly after his third glass of wine. We were celebrating his promotion to regional manager, and the dim lighting cast warm shadows across our family gathering. My daughter-in-law Bethany smiled smugly beside him, while my 8-year-old granddaughter Emma played with her dessert fork. "Mom," Marcus said, his voice carrying across nearby tables, "Janet has houses on the lake, at the beach, in the mountains. What about you? Still living in that cramped studio apartment?" I smiled mysteriously and began. "I moved a long time ago, traded it for a loft with an ocean view, but—" His smile froze completely. The silence stretched between us as Marcus stared at me with confusion clouding his features. Bethany's fork clinked against her plate, and Emma looked up from her chocolate cake with curious eyes. "What do you mean, ocean view?" Marcus asked slowly, his voice dropping to a whisper. I folded my napkin carefully and met his gaze. The penthouse overlooking Monterey Bay. 3,000 square feet with floor-to-ceiling windows. I bought it 5 years ago. Bethany's mouth opened slightly. "Penthouse? Goldie? What are you talking about?" The memories flooded back as I looked at my son's bewildered expression. 20 years ago, after his father died suddenly from a heart attack, I found myself a widow at 45, with a teenage son and a mountain of grief. Marcus was starting his senior year of high school, worried about college costs and our future. I worked as a secretary at a law firm during the day, but in the evenings, I began making jewelry at our kitchen table. What started as a way to keep my hands busy while processing grief became something more. I created delicate silver pieces inspired by the ocean, intricate beadwork that caught light like captured sunlight. I sold them at weekend craft fairs. Then through a small online store, I built myself after taking computer classes at the community center. Marcus never paid attention to my quiet work. He was focused on sports, girlfriends, college applications. When I told him I was doing well with my business, he would nod absently, assuming I meant I was breaking even on materials costs. "I never lived in that studio apartment after your father died," I continued, watching understanding dawn in his eyes. "I rented it as office space for my jewelry business. My real home has been the penthouse for years." Marcus shook his head slowly. "That's impossible. You drive a 10-year-old Honda. You shop at discount stores. You never mentioned any penthouse. Your grandmother taught me that showing off wealth was vulgar," I replied. "I believed in teaching you values through example, not through flashing money around." Emma tugged on my sleeve. "Grandma Goldie, do you really live in a big house?" "I do, sweetheart. Would you like to see it sometime?" Bethany's face had turned pale. For years, she had made subtle comments comparing my modest lifestyle to her mother Janet's obvious wealth. Janet owned properties across California, constantly posting photos on social media of her various homes. She made sure everyone knew about her late husband's successful real estate investments and how comfortable her life had become. "But you always acted like money was tight," Marcus said, his voice rising with confusion and something that might have been anger. "Money was never tight after the first few years," I explained. "My business grew faster than I expected. Celebrity clients began purchasing my pieces. I expanded into custom work, then into importing unique stones from ethical sources around the world." Marcus leaned back in his chair, processing this information. I could see him remembering all the times he had felt embarrassed about my perceived financial situation compared to his in-laws. All the dinner conversations where Bethany's mother had dominated discussions with stories about her properties, her investments, her comfortable retirement. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked quietly. "Because I wanted you to build your own life, based on your own efforts, not on expectations of inheritance or help from me. The restaurant buzzed with conversation around us, but our table had become an island of stunned silence. Emma continued eating her cake, seemingly unfazed by the adult revelations swirling around her. Marcus sat speechless, his celebration dinner forgotten. Bethany's expression shifted from shock to something harder to read. Emma looked between us with the innocent curiosity of a child who sensed something important was happening but could not quite grasp its significance. Marcus's confusion quickly transformed into anger. His face flushed red as he leaned forward across the table. "Are you telling me that while I struggled with college loans and mortgage payments, you were sitting on a fortune?" His voice carried enough edge that nearby diners turned to look. "Marcus, lower your voice," I said calmly, but he was beyond hearing reason. "Do you have any idea what Bethany and I went through to buy our house? The stress of those payments? And you were living in luxury the whole time?" Bethany placed a hand on his arm, but her touch seemed to fuel his anger rather than calm it. I reached into my purse and pulled out a folder I had been carrying for months, waiting for the right moment. "Your college tuition was paid through the Coastal Community Scholarship Foundation. Do you remember that anonymous scholarship that covered most of your expenses?" Marcus nodded impatiently. "What does that have to do with anything? I established that foundation. You received the first scholarship I ever awarded." I opened the folder and showed him the incorporation documents with my name as founder. His anger faltered, replaced by confusion. "What? And your mortgage?" I continued. "I've been making additional principal payments through your bank's third-party payment system for the last 3 years. You should have received notices that someone was paying down your loan balance." Marcus stared at me, his mouth opening and closing without sound. Emma suddenly spoke up. "Daddy, Grandma Goldie pays for my art classes and my ballet. She told me it was our special secret." Bethany turned to look at Emma with surprise. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" "Grandma gives money to Miss Sarah every month. She said not to tell because gifts are more special when they're surprises." The color drained from Marcus's face. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "This is insane. You're making this up." Several restaurant patrons were now openly staring at our table. I remained seated, my hands folded calmly in my lap. "Marcus, please sit down. Let's discuss this rationally." "Rationally?" He laughed bitterly. "Nothing about this is rational. You let me believe you were barely getting by while you were secretly playing fairy godmother?" Bethany's expression had grown increasingly hostile. "Goldie, if this is true, why didn't you help us more obviously? Do you know how many times my mother offered us financial assistance? How embarrassing it was to accept help from her while thinking Marcus's mother was struggling." I pulled out my business cards and placed them on the table. The elegant design featured my jewelry company's logo and listed me as founder and CEO. "You're welcome to verify everything I've told you." The restaurant manager, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes, approached our table hesitantly. "Excuse me, are you Goldie Morrison?" I nodded, and her face lit up with recognition. "I wanted to thank you personally. Your scholarship program helped my daughter attend culinary school. She's working as a pastry chef in San Francisco now because of your generosity." Marcus sank back into his chair, as if the air had been knocked out of him. Bethany stared at the business cards, then at me, then at the manager, who was beaming with gratitude. "You fund scholarships?" Bethany asked weakly. "Among other things," I replied. "The jewelry business allowed me to expand into philanthropy. I prefer to help people quietly rather than making public announcements about charitable giving." The manager walked away after thanking me again, leaving our table in stunned silence. Marcus buried his face in his hands. "I don't understand any of this. You always seemed so ordinary, so normal. I am ordinary and normal. I just happen to have been successful in business. Bethany's worldview was clearly crumbling. For years, she had positioned her mother as the financially superior grandmother, the one who could provide better opportunities for Emma. She had made subtle and not so subtle comparisons between Janet's obvious wealth and my perceived modest circumstances. "My mother is going to lose her mind when she hears about this," Bethany said quietly. Marcus suddenly stood again, this time heading toward the exit. "I need air. This is too much." I watched my son walk away, leaving his wife and daughter at the table with me. Emma reached over and took my hand. "Are you sad, Grandma?" I squeezed her small fingers gently. "A little sad, sweetheart. But sometimes the truth takes time for people to understand." Bethany gathered her purse with shaking hands. "I need to go find Marcus. Emma, come on." As they left, I sat alone at the table, surrounded by the remnants of what was supposed to be a celebration dinner. The truth was finally emerging, but I could see it was going to tear my family apart before it brought us together. 3 days after the dinner, my attorney called with disturbing news. "Goldie, I received an unusual inquiry today. Someone claiming to be a concerned family member contacted our office asking about your mental competency and whether you need assistance managing your affairs." I set down my coffee cup and stared out at the Pacific Ocean from my penthouse windows. Waves crashed against the rocky shoreline below, their rhythm usually soothing, but now unable to calm my growing unease. "What kind of inquiry?" I asked. "They wanted to know if you showed signs of confusion, memory problems, or poor judgment regarding finances. They mentioned concerns about your living situation and suggested you might benefit from a conservatorship arrangement." The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. "Did they leave a name?" "No, but they said they would be in touch with documentation of their concerns." After hanging up, I called a private investigator I had used for business purposes. Within 48 hours, Patricia returned with information that shattered what remained of my faith in my son's character. "Your son Marcus hired a PI 3 weeks ago," she reported over lunch at a quiet cafe downtown. "He wanted a complete financial background check on you. He paid extra for expedited service." I stared at the file she handed me, seeing photocopies of Marcus's check and signed authorization forms. "There's more," Patricia continued. "He and his wife met with an elder law attorney last week. They discussed the process for obtaining conservatorship over an elderly parent who might be hiding assets or showing signs of mental decline." The ocean breeze coming through the cafe's open windows felt cold against my skin. "They believe you're suffering from early-stage dementia and hoarding money in unsafe ways," Patricia explained. The attorney advised them to document any concerning behaviors and gather family members who could testify to your diminished capacity. I thought about all the times I had invited Marcus to visit my penthouse, only to have him decline because he was too busy. All the times I had tried to share details about my business success, only to have him change the subject or seem disinterested. "What did the investigation reveal about my finances?" I asked. Patricia smiled grimly. "That's where this gets interesting. Your son hired an incompetent investigator who found only surface-level information. He knows you own valuable property and have significant investments, but he has no idea about the full scope of your holdings. The file revealed that Marcus and Bethany believed I owned perhaps $1 million in assets. They had no knowledge of my jewelry company's true value, my real estate investments, or my charitable foundation's endowment. They think you're wealthy but not capable of managing that wealth responsibly," Patricia explained. "They're positioning themselves as concerned children who need to step in for your protection." That evening, Emma called my private phone line. something she only did when her parents were not around. Grandma Goldie, Mommy and Daddy, keep whispering about you. They said something about helping you remember things better. My heart ached for this innocent child, caught in the middle of adult deception. What else did they say, sweetheart? Daddy said we need to protect your money from bad people who might try to trick you. And Mommy said Grandma Janet knows lawyers who help families. So Janet was involved too. I should have expected that. Emma, do I seem confused or forgetful to you? No, Grandma. You're the smartest person I know. You remember everything about my school projects and my friends' names and even what books I like. After Emma hung up, I poured myself a glass of wine and stood on my balcony, watching the sunset paint the ocean in shades of gold and crimson. 20 years of building a business, creating financial security, and quietly helping others, only to have my own son plot to take it away from me. The phone rang. Marcus's name appeared on the caller ID. Mom, we need to talk. Bethany and I are worried about you. Worried about what, specifically? Your living situation seems unstable. That penthouse must cost a fortune, and we're concerned you're not thinking clearly about your finances. I almost laughed at the irony. Marcus, would you like to come see my home? Really see it, and let me show you exactly what my financial situation looks like? There was a long pause. Actually, yes. We think that's a good idea. We want to understand what's going on with you. Wonderful. Come Sunday afternoon. Bring Bethany and Emma. It's time for complete honesty between us. After I hung up, I realized this confrontation would determine whether my family could heal from these betrayals or whether the damage was irreparable. My son was coming to my home to assess my competency, not knowing he was about to discover just how competent I truly was. Sunday afternoon arrived with brilliant California sunshine streaming through my penthouse windows. I had spent the morning preparing financial documents, property records, and business portfolios for what I knew would be the most important meeting of my family's future. Marcus, Bethany, and Emma arrived at exactly 2 o'clock. I watched through my security camera as they stood in the marble lobby of my building, looking around with obvious surprise at the elegant surroundings. When the elevator opened directly into my foyer, their expressions shifted from surprise to shock. "Welcome to my home," I said, gesturing toward the living room with its panoramic ocean views. Emma ran immediately to the floor-to-ceiling windows. "Grandma, you can see forever from here." Marcus and Bethany stood frozen, taking in the soaring ceilings, the original artwork on the walls, the custom furniture arranged around a fireplace that could heat a small house. "This is your place?" Bethany asked weakly. "I've lived here for 5 years. Please, sit down. We have a great deal to discuss." I had arranged 3 sets of documents on the coffee table. Marcus approached cautiously, as if he expected the elegant furnishings to disappear like a mirage. "Let me start with my business," I said, opening the first portfolio. Morrison Designs has been profitable for 18 years. We now supply custom jewelry to clients, including 3 Academy Award winners, 2 best-selling authors, and the wife of a tech billionaire. I showed them photographs of celebrities wearing my pieces at red carpet events, along with financial statements showing annual revenues in the 7 figures. My business expanded into importing rare gems from ethical sources. That led to partnerships with fair trade mining operations in 3 countries. Last year, we launched a sustainable jewelry line using recycled metals. Marcus picked up a financial statement with trembling hands. "This says your company is worth $4.8 million. That's correct. But the jewelry business was just the beginning." I opened the second portfolio, revealing property deeds and investment records. "I began investing in real estate 12 years ago. I now own commercial properties in 5 California cities, plus residential rental units in 3 college towns. Bethany sank onto the sofa, staring at property photographs showing office buildings, apartment complexes, and retail spaces. The total value of my real estate holdings is approximately $12 million, I continued matter-of-factly. Emma had found my art books and was flipping through pages of paintings, oblivious to the financial revelations paralyzing her parents. "But here's something interesting," I said, pulling out a specific set of documents. "I recognize some of these addresses from our family conversations." Marcus looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" I placed a mortgage document on the table. "Your mother-in-law Janet's beach house in Santa Barbara. The one she bought 3 years ago and always talks about during family dinners." Bethany leaned forward to read the paperwork. "I don't understand. Morrison Property Holdings financed her purchase. I hold the note on that property." The silence that followed was so complete, I could hear the ocean waves crashing against the rocks below. "You loaned money to my mother?" Bethany's voice was barely a whisper. "My lending company provided financing when her bank application was declined due to debt-to-income ratios. She needed a private lender willing to work with her circumstances." I opened the third portfolio, revealing additional mortgage documents. "I also hold the note on her mountain cabin in Lake Tahoe. She's currently 3 months behind on payments for both properties." Bethany's face went white. "That's impossible. My mother owns those houses outright. She inherited money from my stepfather." "She inherited some money, but it wasn't enough to purchase multiple properties without significant financing. She's been living beyond her means for years." Marcus stared at the documents as if they were written in a foreign language. "So you're saying Janet owes you money?" "Substantial money. And according to my property management company, she's been avoiding their calls about the overdue payments." Emma looked up from her art book. "Grandma, are Mommy and Daddy upset about something?" "They're just surprised about some information, sweetheart. Why don't you explore the balcony? There's a telescope you can use to look at boats in the harbor." As Emma skipped outside, I turned back to my son and daughter-in-law. "My net worth, including business assets, real estate holdings, investment portfolios, and cash reserves, is approximately $22 million. Marcus made a choking sound. Bethany buried her face in her hands. "But the most important thing I want you to understand is why I kept this information private. I gathered the documents back into neat stacks. I never wanted money to define our relationships. I wanted you to love me for who I am, not for what I could provide financially." Marcus finally found his voice. "$22 million? Mom, that makes you wealthier than most people in this entire city." "Wealth is relative. What matters is how you use it and whether it brings meaning to your life." Bethany looked up with tears in her eyes. "My mother has been bragging about her properties for years. She made me feel like your family was somehow beneath ours financially." "Your mother's facade has been built on borrowed money and increasingly precarious debt," I replied gently. "Real wealth isn't about appearances or impressing others with possessions." Marcus stood and walked to the windows where Emma was playing with the telescope. I could see him processing everything, his worldview reorganizing around these new facts. "The private investigator," he said suddenly, turning back to face me. "You know about that?" I nodded. "And the elder law attorney, and your plans for conservatorship proceedings." The shame that crossed his face was painful to witness. "Mom, I thought you were losing your mind. Spending money recklessly, living beyond your means. I was trying to protect you." "From what?" "From becoming homeless when your money ran out. From being taken advantage of by scammers or unethical financial advisors." The irony was devastating. My son had been so convinced of my incompetence that he had plotted to take control of wealth he could never have imagined I possessed. "Marcus," I said gently, "when was the last time you asked me about my life? Really asked and listened to the answer?" He opened his mouth to respond, then closed it, unable to find words. The reconciliation would have to begin with honesty, but trust would take much longer to rebuild. The next morning, while Marcus and Bethany were still processing the revelations from our meeting, an unexpected visitor arrived at my penthouse. Janet stood at my door, her face flushed with anger, and her designer handbag clutched tightly in her manicured hands. "We need to talk," she announced, pushing past me into my foyer without invitation. "Good morning, Janet. Please come in," I said with deliberate calm. She strode into my living room, her high heels clicking sharply against the marble floors. For a moment, she paused to take in the luxury surrounding her, but her anger quickly refocused. "Bethany told me about your little performance yesterday, your claims about owning property and having money." She turned to face me with unconcealed hostility. "I don't know what game you're playing, but it needs to stop." I gestured toward the seating area. "Would you like some coffee? I want you to stop filling my daughter's head with nonsense about being wealthy. It's clearly some kind of mental break, and it's affecting my grandchild." Janet's arrogance was breathtaking. Even standing in my multi-million-dollar home, she maintained her position of superiority. "What exactly do you think is nonsense?" I asked, settling into my favorite chair. "This penthouse fantasy, these stories about owning businesses. Bethany said you claim to own real estate. It's obviously a delusion brought on by stress or early dementia." I reached for the folder I had prepared after our family meeting, knowing this confrontation was inevitable. "Janet, do you recognize this address?" I handed her a document showing her Santa Barbara beach house purchase. She glanced at it dismissively. "That's my beach property. What does that have to do with anything? Look at the lender information." Her eyes moved to the bottom of the page, where Morrison Property Holdings was listed as the mortgage company. I watched her face change as she processed what she was reading. "This is some kind of mistake," she said, but her voice had lost its edge. "And this one?" I handed her the Lake Tahoe cabin mortgage documents. Janet's hands trembled slightly as she read her own signature on loan papers issued by my company. "You?" she whispered. "Morrison Property Holdings has been your lender for both properties. You're currently 93 days past due on the beach house and 87 days past due on the cabin." The color drained from Janet's face as the implications hit her. All those years of positioning herself as the financially superior grandmother, all those dinner conversations where she had subtly diminished my perceived modest circumstances, all the times she had made Bethany feel embarrassed about Marcus's family's financial situation. "That's impossible," she said, but the documents in her hands told a different story. "My property management company has been trying to reach you for weeks about the overdue payments. You've been avoiding their calls." Janet sank onto my sofa, her arrogance crumbling into panic. "I've had some temporary cash flow issues. The stock market affected my portfolio. Your financial situation is more serious than temporary cash flow problems. According to my accountants, you're leveraged beyond any reasonable debt-to-income ratio." She looked around my penthouse with new understanding. The expensive furnishings, the original artwork, the stunning ocean views. Everything she had dismissed as impossible delusion was undeniably real. "How long have you been wealthy?" she asked quietly. "I've been building financial security for 20 years. My success happened gradually through hard work and smart investments." Janet's pride warred with her desperation. "What do you want? Some kind of apology for thinking you were poor? I want honesty in our family relationships. I want you to acknowledge that your years of condescension toward me were based on false assumptions." "I never condescended to you," she said defensively. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a video Bethany had posted on social media the previous Christmas. In it, Janet was giving a tour of her mountain cabin while making comments about helping less fortunate family members and sharing our blessings with those who haven't been as lucky in life. "Would you like me to play this?" I asked. Janet's face flushed red. "That was just. I was trying to be generous. You were being patronizing. For years, you've made subtle and not-so-subtle comments about my financial situation, always positioning yourself as the family benefactor." The truth was finally forcing its way to the surface. Janet had built her identity around being the wealthy grandmother, the one who could provide opportunities the other grandmother could not. Now that foundation was crumbling. "What happens now?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "That depends on you. I can offer you a reasonable payment plan for your overdue mortgages, but it comes with conditions." "What conditions?" "You apologize to Marcus and Bethany for years of making them feel ashamed of their financial circumstances. You acknowledge publicly that your assessment of my situation was completely wrong. And you commit to building authentic relationships with our family, instead of relationships based on financial superiority." Janet stood abruptly, her pride still fighting against reality. "I don't have to listen to this. I'll find other financing options." "You're welcome to try. But given your current debt load and payment history, I doubt any reputable lender will work with you." She stormed toward the door, then stopped and turned back. "You planned this, didn't you? You've been waiting years to humiliate me." "I've been waiting years for honesty. The humiliation is entirely of your own making." After Janet left, I called Bethany to let her know about the confrontation. Her response was a mixture of embarrassment and relief. "I'm so sorry, Goldie. I had no idea my mother's financial situation was that precarious. She always made it seem like money was never a concern. Appearances can be deceiving, as we've all learned recently. Marcus feels terrible about the private investigator and the lawyer consultations. We both realize how wrong we were about everything. The healing process was beginning, but I knew it would take time for trust to be fully restored. Truth had finally emerged, but relationships damaged by years of false assumptions would need careful rebuilding. 2 weeks after my confrontation with Janet, I called a family meeting that would reshape our relationships permanently. I had spent those weeks working with my attorney and financial advisor to create a structure that would teach lessons rather than simply transfer wealth. Marcus, Bethany, and Emma arrived at my penthouse on a Saturday afternoon. They seemed nervous, unsure what to expect after all the recent revelations. Janet had agreed to attend after I made it clear that her financial future depended on participating in this conversation. My attorney, Sarah Chen, and financial advisor, Robert Williams, were already present when my family arrived. The formal setting made everyone uncomfortable, which was exactly my intention. "Thank you all for coming," I began, standing beside the dining table where I had arranged documents that would determine our family's future. The past few weeks have forced us all to confront some difficult truths about our relationships and our values. Emma sat quietly beside her mother, sensing the seriousness of the adult conversation, but not fully understanding its implications. "I've decided to restructure my estate in a way that addresses the issues that have divided us," I continued. "Sarah, would you explain the family trust structure we've developed?" My attorney opened her briefcase and distributed copies of a comprehensive document to each adult family member. "Mrs. Morrison has established the Morrison Family Foundation Trust," Sarah explained. "This trust is designed to provide opportunities for personal growth while ensuring that wealth is used responsibly across generations." Marcus leaned forward, studying the document. "What does that mean exactly?" It means that access to family resources is tied to demonstrated personal development and community contribution, I replied. Let me explain what this looks like for each of you. I turned to Marcus first. Your inheritance is substantial, but it comes with requirements. You must complete financial literacy courses through an accredited program within 1 year. You must also commit to volunteering at least 10 hours per month with community organizations focused on helping others achieve financial stability. Marcus nodded slowly. That seems reasonable. Additionally, you'll have the opportunity to join me in managing the charitable aspects of our family foundation, but only after proving you understand both the responsibilities and the privileges that come with wealth. I moved on to Bethany. Your participation in the trust requires 1 year of service with nonprofit organizations focused on women's empowerment or family services. You'll document your experiences and present what you've learned to the rest of the family. Bethany's eyes filled with tears. I think I'd like that. I've been feeling empty lately, like my life lacks purpose beyond shopping and social events. Emma looked up with interest. What about me, Grandma? I smiled and knelt down to her level. Your education is fully funded through college and graduate school if you choose, but with an emphasis on service learning and character development. You'll participate in community service projects appropriate for your age, and you'll learn about philanthropy by helping decide which causes our family foundation should support. Emma clapped her hands together. Can I help with animal shelters? Absolutely. We'll make sure your interests guide some of our charitable giving. Janet had remained silent throughout these discussions, but now she cleared her throat nervously. What about my situation with the property loans? I turned to face her directly. Your debt can be forgiven completely, but it requires a public apology to this family for years of condescension and superiority. It also requires your commitment to building authentic relationships based on mutual respect, rather than financial comparison. Janet's pride warred visibly with her desperation. Public apology? At the very least, an honest conversation with Bethany and Marcus, acknowledging how your attitude affected their marriage and their relationship with me. Robert, my financial advisor, spread additional documents on the table. The trust also includes business mentorship opportunities. Family members who complete their personal development requirements can participate in learning how to manage and grow the family's business interests. Marcus studied the papers with growing excitement. You mean we could work together in your companies? If you prove you're ready for that responsibility, wealth without wisdom is dangerous. I want to ensure that our family's resources are used to create positive impact rather than enable entitlement. Sarah added, the trust structure includes provisions for future generations as well. Children and grandchildren will inherit opportunities to earn their place in the family legacy rather than simply receiving money without effort. Emma had been listening carefully, despite her young age. Grandma, does this mean we're going to help lots of people? That's exactly what it means, sweetheart. Our family has been blessed with resources, and those blessings come with the responsibility to help others. Janet finally spoke up, her voice subdued. I owe everyone an apology. My behavior over the years has been terrible. I was so focused on appearing successful that I lost sight of what really matters. The sincerity in her voice surprised everyone, including me. I've been living beyond my means to maintain an image, she continued. My late husband left me some money, but I spent it trying to impress people instead of managing it wisely. I convinced myself that having expensive possessions made me a better grandmother, a more valuable family member. Bethany reached over and took her mother's hand. Mom, we never needed you to impress us. We just needed you to love us. Marcus wiped tears from his eyes. I've been just as shallow. I was embarrassed about Mom's perceived financial situation because I cared more about what other people thought than about the person she actually is. The transformation happening around my dining table was exactly what I had hoped for. Money was finally being put in its proper perspective as a tool for good rather than a measure of human worth. The trust becomes active immediately, I announced. Emma's education accounts are funded. Marcus and Bethany, you have 1 year to complete your requirements. Janet, your debt forgiveness takes effect as soon as you fulfill your commitment to honest communication with this family. Robert handed out additional information packets. You'll each have access to counselors and advisors who will help you navigate your personal development requirements. This isn't meant to be punitive, but rather supportive of real growth. Emma raised her hand as if she were in school. Grandma, when do we start helping the animal shelters? How about next weekend? We'll visit 3 local organizations and let you help decide which ones receive our first grants. The meeting ended with embraces instead of arguments. For the first time in years, our family was united around shared values rather than divided by financial comparisons. As everyone prepared to leave, Marcus lingered behind. Mom, I need to say something privately. I waited as the others gathered their belongings and headed toward the elevator. I've been an ungrateful son, he said quietly. You raised me alone after Dad died, built a successful business, helped me through college and into my career, all while I took everything for granted and never once asked about your dreams or your struggles or your accomplishments. Marcus, you were building your own life. That's what children are supposed to do. But I should have seen you as a complete person, not just as my mother whose job was to support my goals. I pulled him into a hug, feeling the genuine remorse in his embrace. We have time to rebuild our relationship on a foundation of mutual respect and understanding, I told him. That's all I've ever wanted. The elevator doors closed behind my family, but for the first time in months, I felt hopeful about our future together. The truth had been painful, but it had also set us free from the pretenses and assumptions that had kept us from truly knowing each other. 6 months later, our family gathered once again in my penthouse, but this time the atmosphere was completely transformed. Warm laughter filled the space as we celebrated Emma's 9th birthday, and the changes in each family member were remarkable to witness. Marcus had completed his financial literacy courses with enthusiasm that surprised even him. He discovered a passion for understanding investment strategies and economic principles that went far beyond his previous focus on earning and spending money. More importantly, his volunteer work with a nonprofit organization, helping families avoid foreclosure, had given him perspective on how quickly financial security could disappear without proper planning and education. Mom, I never realized how many people are one emergency away from losing their homes, he told me, as we prepared birthday decorations together. Working with these families has taught me more about money management than any business course I ever took. Bethany had found her calling, working with a women's shelter downtown. Her year of required service had stretched into an ongoing commitment as she discovered fulfillment in helping women rebuild their lives after domestic violence. I used to spend my days shopping for things I didn't need and attending social events that meant nothing, she reflected while arranging flowers Emma had picked from my rooftop garden. Now I wake up excited about the work I'm doing. These women have incredible strength and resilience. They've taught me what real courage looks like. Janet's transformation had been the most surprising of all. Her public apology at a family dinner 2 months earlier had been genuinely heartfelt, acknowledging years of behavior she now recognized as destructive to family unity. More importantly, she had followed through on her commitment to authentic relationships. I spent so much energy trying to prove I was better than everyone else, that I forgot how to simply enjoy being with the people I love, she admitted to Emma, who was showing her a photo album of their recent volunteer activities together. The most wonderful change was watching Janet and Emma develop a real relationship. They now volunteered together at the animal shelter Emma had chosen for our family foundation's first major grant. Janet had discovered that her granddaughter was far more interesting as a person than she had ever realized when their interactions focused on expensive gifts and elaborate outings. "Grandma Goldie, look what Grandma Janet and I taught the new puppies," Emma called out, showing me a video on my tablet of their training session with rescued dogs. The sight of Janet sitting on the floor of a dog kennel, her expensive clothes replaced with practical work clothes, patiently helping Emma teach commands to abandoned puppies, represented everything I had hoped our family could become. My jewelry business had expanded to include a new line created specifically to raise funds for charitable causes. Each piece told the story of a nonprofit organization we supported, and customers could choose to direct their purchase toward specific programs that resonated with them. Marcus had become genuinely involved in the business side of our foundation work. His background in management, combined with his newfound understanding of financial responsibility, made him an excellent partner in evaluating grant applications and monitoring the effectiveness of our charitable investments. "We received the final report from the scholarship program you started," he told me, handing over a folder filled with photos and testimonials from college students who had received funding. 23 students graduated this year because of our support. Several of them are now giving back by mentoring high school students in their communities. Bethany had taken charge of expanding our women's empowerment initiatives. Her personal experience with shallow priorities had given her credibility with women struggling to rebuild their lives and find purpose after major life changes. Next month, we're launching a program helping women start small businesses, she announced proudly. "We'll provide microloans, mentorship, and marketing support. I'm especially excited about partnering with your jewelry business to feature pieces created by women in our program." Emma had become our family's conscience, regularly reminding us to consider how our choices affected others and suggesting new ways to help people in our community. Her natural empathy, combined with hands-on experience in charitable work, was shaping her into a remarkably compassionate young person. "Grandma, Mrs. Peterson, at the animal shelter, said we could sponsor a reading program where kids read books to the dogs," she announced excitedly. "The dogs like hearing stories, and it helps shy kids practice reading out loud. Can we do that?" "That's a wonderful idea, Emma. Why don't you write up a proposal for our next foundation meeting?" The changes weren't just about charitable work. Our family dinners had become genuine conversations about meaningful topics rather than competitions over material possessions. We talked about books we were reading, places we wanted to travel for service projects, people we had met through our volunteer work who had inspired us. Marcus and Bethany's marriage had strengthened as they discovered shared values they hadn't known they possessed. Working together on foundation projects had given them common purpose beyond their individual careers and social obligations. "I never knew Bethany was so passionate about social justice issues," Marcus confided to me during a quiet moment on the balcony. "When she gets excited about helping someone start a business or escape an abusive situation, she lights up in a way I never saw when she was focused on shopping or decorating our house." The financial aspects of our family had stabilized as well. Janet had learned to live within her means and had even become quite skilled at budgeting and financial planning. Her debt was forgiven, but more importantly, she had developed genuine appreciation for money as a tool rather than a measure of personal worth. "I'm actually happier living in my smaller condo than I ever was trying to maintain those big properties I couldn't afford, she told me. I have less space but so much more peace of mind. As we sat around my dining table for Emma's birthday dinner, I looked at each family member and felt profound gratitude for the journey we had traveled together. The path had been painful at times, but it had led us to a much deeper understanding of what truly mattered. I want to tell you all something, I said as we finished Emma's chocolate birthday cake. 6 months ago, I was heartbroken by the divisions in our family. I felt like money had become a barrier between us, rather than a blessing we could share. Emma reached over and squeezed my hand. But we fixed it, didn't we, Grandma? We did fix it, sweetheart. We learned that real wealth isn't about having the most possessions or the biggest houses. Real wealth is about having loving relationships, meaningful work, and the ability to help others achieve their dreams. Marcus raised his glass of sparkling cider. To Mom, who taught us that the best inheritance isn't money but wisdom, compassion, and the courage to live with purpose. As we toasted our family's transformation, Emma made an announcement that perfectly captured everything we had learned together. Next year for my birthday, instead of presents, I want everyone to donate money to help more families like the ones Daddy works with. And maybe we can have the party at the animal shelter so the dogs can have cake too. The laughter and enthusiastic agreement that followed Emma's suggestion filled me with hope for the future. We had discovered that true happiness came not from accumulating wealth, but from using our resources to create positive change in the world around us. You know what I've learned? Bethany said thoughtfully. I spent years feeling competitive with other families, always comparing what we had to what they had. Now I realize that the most successful families are the ones who lift each other up and work together to lift up other people too. Janet nodded in agreement. I wasted so much time trying to impress people with things that didn't matter. The proudest moment of my life was last week when that young mother at the shelter told me that our business loan program gave her hope for the first time in years. As the evening wound down and my family prepared to return to their respective homes, I felt a deep sense of completion. The painful confrontations and difficult revelations of recent months had ultimately led us to authentic love and shared purpose. Marcus lingered after the others left, helping me clear dishes and pack up leftover cake. Mom, I need to ask you something, he said as we worked together in my kitchen. Are you happy with how everything turned out? Do you regret keeping your success private for so many years? I considered his question carefully. I regret that my privacy led to misunderstandings and hurt feelings, but I don't regret teaching you to value character over material possessions. The money would have meant nothing if it hadn't ultimately brought our family closer together. I'm proud of you, he said quietly. Not because you're wealthy, but because you used your wealth to make all of us better people. As I stood alone in my penthouse after everyone had gone home, I reflected on the lesson that had emerged from our family's crisis. True wealth is not measured by bank account balances or property deeds, but by the love we share, the positive impact we create, and the legacy of compassion we leave for future generations. Money had nearly torn my family apart, but wisdom and patience had ultimately brought us together in ways that were stronger and more meaningful than anything we had experienced before. The ocean waves crashed gently against the shore below my windows, their rhythm as constant and reliable as the love that now flowed freely through my family. We had learned that the greatest riches in life cannot be purchased, but must be earned through kindness, humility, and genuine care for others. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced a situation where assumptions about money or success damaged family relationships? How do you think families can balance financial success with strong values and authentic love? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, Please give it a like, subscribe for more stories about real families overcoming real challenges, and share it with someone who might benefit from this message about what truly matters in life. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and I hope you're inspired to create your own legacy of love and generosity in your family and community.